Greetings everybody, Redbeard here for the November 2nd, 2016 edition of the Midweek Update. No Shave November is here, or as I like to call it, just November. I didn't choose the bearded life, the bearded life chose me. Number 5 story of the week is that a number of Legends' daughters have come forward with an announcement that they're going to be starting their own professional wrestling promotion, or as they're calling it, a league. This is an announcement that was a little bit of a surprise. It came during a interview that TMZ did with Brittany Page, and yes, if you're curious, that was the only stock photo I could find of Brittany Page to use as a header image. Yeah, just go Google it yourself if you want to, but don't do it on work times. But she was in an interview with TMZ and divulged to them that she and a couple of other Legends daughters are going to be opening their own league or professional wrestling promotion, whichever you want to call it, featuring an all-female roster. This is something of a surprise because Brittany Page, to my knowledge, has never really had any involvement in the business. However, the other folks that she has aligned herself with in this effort all have at least some experience and exposure to the mainstream wrestling fan base. The people that she's aligned herself with, according to her announcement and the other information that's coming out of this, are Brooke Hogan. Of course, everybody knows Brooke Hogan from her time in TNA and her career as far as a singer, if you want to call it that. Lacey Von Erich, who's involved with TNA and a number of various other promotions. Ariel Toombs, who is actually Roddy Piper's daughter. And Bianca Van Dam, who is Jean-Claude Van Damme's daughter. I had no idea she was into wrestling, but good for her. There's not a whole lot of additional details out there. Christy Hemme is believed to have some involvement with this, either from a production or creative standpoint. Not sure what she's going to be able to add to the program, but more power to her for being involved, because it's definitely something that she would be able to take charge in, because she's probably one of the more veteran individuals that have been brought up as being involved with this thing. During the interview, Paige did say something about it being competitive with TNA, and that was like, okay, you really want to compete with them? But at the same time, we don't have a whole lot of information about this other than the fact that it apparently is going to be a thing. No name, no announcement for shows, no roster, nothing like that. So we're talking about this really because of the fact that a attractive girl said she's going to have wrestling, and she happens to be the daughter of a guy who was a big deal back in the mid to late 90s and whatnot. So yeah, it's a slow week overall, but yeah, that's a number 5 story. Number 4 story of the week is that Ric Flair and Broken Matt are both running for President of the United States of America. Not really. I kind of wish they were in a way, but they're not actually going to be contenders, but they have both launched into some entertaining little social media fluctuations or announcements, whatever you want to call it, to try and get some attention and sell some merchandise and do some pretty cool things. It was one of these crazy little turn of events to where you had a guy who, I'm going to probably butcher his name because I'm not that into hip-hop and whatnot, but Wacka Flacka Flame, I think is his name. Yeah, he was going to originally be a candidate for president, and then turned out that he's actually not old enough to be a candidate. You have to be at least 35. Good to know that I could run, but he can't. So he then in turn apparently made a deal with Ric Flair. So Rick is going to be the candidate. Wacka Flacka is going to be the running mate. So there's their ticket. And then you've got Broken Matt, who came out on Twitter here a few days ago and made the announcement that he would be running for president as well. That he would, do something with the obsolete mules that are Trump and Hillary. And to be honest, I think I'd probably vote for him before I would Rick, because at least with Matt, he's got a pretty sound economic history. Big money Matt, still around there somewhere. Whereas Ric Flair, God knows he's lost more money than I've ever seen in my entire lifetime. And probably will ever see in my lifetime as well. But, between the two of them, like I said, probably more in tune with voting for Broken Matt. Flair, I think, would be an interesting guy to get in front of a microphone occasionally and to let him, kind of go toe-to-toe with someone like Putin. But at the same time, you gotta hand it to Broken Matt, because it would just be hilarious to see him engage with not only the media, but some of these Washington types as well there. The thing about this is that it's, of course, a parody. It's, of course, not something that's going to be legitimate. But at the same time, I'm sure they're going to get votes. I'm sure people are going to go out there and they're going to write in Brooke and Matt, or they're going to write in Ric Flair. And I would love to see how many they actually get. I know there's no way of actually tabulating all that, but yeah, it'd be great to see how many people actually do choose to vote for people like Flair or Hardy or even Mickey Mouse, because it does happen. Number 3 story of the week is that we have some additional details about the PWX16 tournament that's coming up here in a few weeks in North Carolina at Club Escapade in Charlotte. We spoke a little bit about this last week because the majority of the field had been fleshed out. We had an idea of who was going to be involved in the tournament. And now we've got an even better idea because as a result of the poster for the event having been published, we now know that there have been at least 15 of 16 competitors announced. The additional names that we know by virtue of that poster are, I'm going to butcher his last name because I'm not quite sure how it's pronounced, but Fred Yehi, or Yehai, I'm sorry, I just don't know. Colby Carino, Chip Day, and Court Hollis. The combination of those last 3 are expected because they're, of course, main individuals from PWX's roster. It's good to see all those guys getting an opportunity to compete in this. Fred is someone who's a little bit more well known for his work around the independent scene, and was one of those guys who's obviously an up and coming talent, been known somewhat well in the Northeast, coming down here now to be involved in this and other promotions as well. So it's good to see him getting a chance to compete in front of our crowds here in the Carolinas. The thing about this poster is that if you take it literally in terms of the way it's formatted, you've got 2 columns of what appear to be a presentation of match possibilities. You would think in a match, or excuse me, in a tournament bracket like this, that the layout would kind of be indicative of what we're going to see in terms of the potential matchups that are going to be happening in the first round. And here again, if you take the poster literally, there are some interesting matches that have been put out there. We'll go through a couple of those here. First and foremost, the possibility of Zack Sabre Jr. and Anthony Henry having an opening round contest. Of course, Anthony Henry has been through, I'll go ahead and say, hell and back in terms of the series of matches that he's had with PWX here for the past 6 or 8 months. Guys like Sami Callihan, Tommaso Ciampa, last week with Jonathan Davis, just all kinds of top-tier talent that he's been put through the ringer with and come out pretty well in terms of his exposure and everything else. But yeah, one more feather in the cap there would potentially be getting a win over Zack Sabre Jr., so that's a big deal there. Then you've got the possibility of Matthew Riddle there, the guy who transitioned from MMA to pro wrestling, versus Chip Day. Chip is one of those guys who tends to fly under the radar in terms of how much exposure and notice he gets, but he's a very talented athlete. Then you have Court Hollis and Davey Richards. The potential for them to be squaring off is a big deal because, of course, you have Hollis, who is known for his exposure in NXT and all around this part of the world. But then you have Davey Richards, who is a guy that's got a lot of attention here over the past few days because he's announced that 2017 will be his last year in professional wrestling. A lot of people will say various things about Richards because he's somewhat known for just not really showing up for bookings and making last-minute cancellations and whatnot. But if he gets involved here, he's been at PWX on several occasions previously, and his inclusion here would be pretty cool. Be neat to see him advance in the tournament, although at the same time, being a fan of Corey Hollis, it'd be neat to see him get a win over Davey Richards there as well. And then the one that intrigues me the most, and it's a match that to my knowledge has never happened before, but it's a match that could see Trevor Lee facing off against James Drake, the New Age Enforcer, against the Carolina Caveman, if you will there. That match there could be awesome for a number of reasons, because you've got 2 guys who are incredibly talented, not only in terms of the physicality that they employ in the ring, but also from the standpoint of 2 guys who really get it when it comes to the expressions of their character and being able to connect with a crowd. Because Trevor Lee, he's one of those guys who just is masterful in terms of his expressions and his ability to emote. But then you've got a guy like James Drake, who clearly has not only done tremendous things in improving his physique over the past couple of months, but also been able to really develop a character and has tremendous gifts when it comes to being able to go out there and talk and jaw with the crowd and get people going. So a lot of potential in that matchup there, and I hope that actually happens because that would be a fun match to see for sure. But it looks like there's a lot of great potential for this tournament bracket if, again, what we're seeing here on the poster is to be taken literally. If it's not, oh well, it's still going to be a fun tournament, and with this combination of talent, it's going to be some great things to come out of it. There's been a lot of conjecture and a lot of possible names that floated around in some of the local discussion groups for independent wrestling as to who the 16th competitor could be in this. You got everybody from John Schuyler, Sami Callihan, Ricochet, all the names that have been associated with PWX at one point in time have all been thrown in there. So we'll just have to wait and see who that final entrant is. Is it somebody we know? Is it somebody we've seen before? We don't know, but we'll find out soon enough because the X16 tournament is coming up November 19th and 20th in Charlotte, North Carolina. Number 2 story of the week is who is in control of TNA now? Well, technically it's Dixie Carter at this point, but it's not Billy Corgan, and it probably won't be for at least a little while longer here. There was a hearing in conjunction with the lawsuit that he's filed against Dixie Carter and a number of other individuals to try and get control of the company, and there were some rulings made during that hearing that more or less didn't go Billy's way. It was an attempt on his part to bring about knowledge in front of a court and judge that there had been some agreements made between he and Dixie that in his statements would have essentially put him in control of the company. But there was evidently not enough evidence to really go forward with that. There wasn't apparently documentation of it, which kind of surprised me because you'd think that when you're talking about the amount of money that Corgan evidently floated to Dixie and TNA in order to do the various TV shoots that they did with his money, you'd think that there would be some actual contracts or something involved that would say, hey, okay, this is what we're agreeing to, this is the payment schedule that you'll be getting that back to me, whole 9 yards there. But from what the court ruling there seemed to suggest, that wasn't in place. So it's not so much they didn't have a complete leg to stand on, though, because there have been some things that are still pending in this whole lawsuit that could still result in him getting control of the company, but it's going to be more of a protracted effort and going back and forth between the two sides here. The whole thing is just still a big mess in terms of what's going on with TNA, because you have this going on, and at the same time, over the past couple of days, it's been announced that the provider that they had been working with in the UK, I think it's Challenge TV over there, has decided to no longer carry their footage or to carry their shows. The crazy thing there is, of course, it's not only a big hit to their revenue stream, because the 2 deals that they have internationally were this, and also one that has them broadcast over in India with Sony 6. The loss of that particular deal is going to be a big blow to them in terms of their ability to continue to bring in any type of money from foreign broadcast, but it's also just one of those things where it's a removal of a market essentially, because they had been doing great things in the UK and now they're not going to have TV over there. So what was really remarkable about that turn of events, though, was that TNA, in a statement, essentially seemed to blame spoilers on the internet for the fact that their show wasn't doing as well as it could have been over there, or the fact that this contract was lost. And that was weird to me, because the fact that the way the air structure was, you'd get the show in the United States and then 3 or 5 days later you get it in the UK, but it's still a show that was taped 3 months before. So if you wanted to know what happened, you were going to know what happened regardless. But still, it's one of those things where they try and put a positive spin on it, and you're beyond the point of trying to polish a turd right now, in my opinion. So we'll have to continue to wait and see what goes on with the future of TNA Wrestling, but yeah, no good news yet. And the number 1 story of the week is our reaction to WWE's Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. This was a event that had a lot to do going in advance. It was a big promoted thing because of the fact that not only did you have a main event that was going to be 2 women in the Hell in a Cell, but also the fact that it was just a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view period. And there was some misgivings about it after the fact in terms of the way it was received. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail here in a few moments, but first we'll talk about the fact that there was some real heated discussion in the possibility that the ladies were not going to get the main event of the show. Apparently in the days leading to Hell in a Cell, Vince McMahon was not convinced that this was going to be the way to close out the event. He apparently didn't have that much confidence in it, and evidently from what we've read and from what we've heard, it took some convincing for him to sign off on saying, okay, that's going to be our main event. They went and did the whole, okay, well, we've got a triple main event type thing in terms of promoting the show and talking on Raw and whatnot, but I don't think you can have a triple main event. You have, of course, your main event, and then you have your undercard. It's one of those things where you're sort of splitting hairs, and you're also trying to, give people the upward treatment of saying, okay, well, you're still valued, but not as valued as they are, so to speak. But I'm glad that they did get the opportunity, because they definitely had earned it. They deserved it. The matches they've had in the past were definitely indicative of a potential main event slot, and I'm glad they got it. I'm glad they had the opportunity to go out there. And looking at the show as a whole, here again, you've got to show that they really didn't do a whole lot in terms of progressing anything. It was kind of one of these pay-per-views to where we've had a show for the sake of having a show. And even so much in looking at the Hell in a Cell matches, including the women's match, they more or less were no DQ matches. There was not a whole lot of usage of the cell in terms of saying, okay, well, here's something you can do with it that is unique. Here's a thing that happened that wouldn't have happened in a match that had a different set of scenarios or gimmicks tied to it. It's just gotten to a point where there's not a whole lot they can do with it, because it's like, okay, well, here I'm going to bonk you into the cage. All right, well, here I'm going to throw you in the cage. Or here I'm going to, cut your head in the door or whatever else. There's just not a whole lot they can do that's unique with the Hell in a Cell gimmick anymore, at least as the structure is concerned. You're always going to have that hope, I guess is probably the bad word to tie to it, but you're always going to have that thought that at some point in time you're going to have the competitors involved in the matches get up on top of the cell. And that's just, I think you can't really do that much, not only because it's tremendously dangerous, but also because of the fact that it'll continue to devalue the structure in terms of what it can be used for. So I think you have people who were disappointed in the fact that you didn't see Charlotte and Sasha up on the top of the cell. Of course, everybody wants to see that moment again where Mankind goes flying off the thing or goes through the cage, whatever else, but and that's not really what I'm talking about when I say it was a disappointment in that they couldn't make use of the cage. It's just that, here again, you've got this as a device, this structure, this cage, and the matches don't make use of it. They had chairs, they had tables. Rusev and Roman Reigns, they brought the steps into the ring, they had a chain. It's all the stuff that isn't conducive to having the Hell in a Cell. So I don't know how you get around that, though. It's one of these things where you've got this pay-per-view that's built around that cage, and creatively speaking, there just aren't a whole lot of ways to take advantage of it. Not that were expressed in this particular show anyway. The whole undercard there, as far as the other matches, you had the 3 Hell in a Cell matches with Rusev and Roman Reigns, Rollins and Kevin Owens, and then Sasha and Charlotte. The undercard, total blow off. Nothing really happened there, with the exception of T.J. Perkins losing the Cruiserweight Championship to Brian Kendrick. In my opinion, one of the more entertaining segments of the entire show happened during the kickoff program, which was the 6-man tag where you had Cedric Alexander teaming with Lindsay Dorado, Sin Cara, going against Tony Nese, Drew Gulak, and Araya Daivari. Very fun match. A lot of fun from all competitors in that match. Of course, we're a little biased because of the fact that Cedric Alexander was involved there, but great to see him getting a big opportunity and a big chance to shine on the pay-per-view, even though it was a kickoff program. For him to get the win for his team, hit the lumbar check on Gulak there, awesome stuff. So there is also, now that we're talking about awesome stuff, plenty of awesome stuff coming up this weekend in the local scene. If you aren't aware, there are at least, to my knowledge, 13 shows. 13 shows. That means 13 opportunities for you to get out there and see some wrestling this weekend. So let's go ahead and roll the posters for the upcoming events this weekend. We'll be back in a few moments to close out the show. There you have it, our rundown of the events that are coming your way this weekend. If you're a wrestler, a promoter, or in some way involved with the wrestling promotion, and you didn't see your poster in that segment, it's because of the fact that we didn't know about it. We do our best to peruse social media to keep abreast of what's happening in this part of the world, but we do miss things. That said, if you would send us your poster and information via YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, email, any of the opportunities to communicate that we have, be more than glad to get your stuff out there, both here on the midweek update program and also on the Facebook page there. We have several albums full of wrestling posters for upcoming events. It's a great way to get your word out there, and we are more than glad to help you in doing that because that's a big part of what we do with Rasslin with Redbeard, promoting local shows and talent. I do want to make a quick announcement. There will not be a midweek update next week because of the fact that I am going on vacation. So don't look for my pretty face to grace your YouTube channel or YouTube subscription page, whatever it happens to be there on the 9th, I think it will be next week, because I won't be here. I'll be somewhere, hopefully with a nice cold drink in my hand, enjoying myself and my time away from the normal and mundane aspects of life. But at any rate, we'll be back the week following with more stuff. I do want to point out also that we've added a highlight package of the match content that we have from Wrestle Force's most recent event, that being Fall Brawl. So you can check that out on the highlights and clips playlist that we have here on the Rasslin with Redbeard YouTube channel. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you enjoy the program, go and click that like button. And if you really enjoy what we got on the channel, go ahead and click subscribe. We appreciate it. See you guys soon.